to praise their leader. And let's not forget that he left office in disgrace. Yes, gentle lady from Georgia, we're going to talk about that Donald Trump, who stole classified materials and stored them in his bathroom. He was investigated and indicted for his crimes. Now, Attorney General Garland set up a parallel investigation of President Biden's handling of classified documents as well. And that shows the Department of Justice is actually fair and independent. So to oversee this investigation, he appointed Robert Hur, a former U.S. attorney handpicked by Donald Trump. Robert Hur found no wrongdoing by President Biden. No wrongdoing by President Biden. But he chose to smear President Biden with a totally unprofessional and wrong assessment of the president's age and mental sharpness. Now, as we know, his assessment about President Biden was wrong because you can literally yourself read the transcript, which is over 250 pages long. Now, many of us, especially us Democrats, know the president. He is sharp. He is focused on the big issues. He's dealing with large challenges across the world. Now, the majority is hyping up this issue to distract us from the fact that Donald Trump keeps embarrassing himself in public. And as much as the gentle lady from Georgia and others may not like it, we know that Trump's public statements have been crazy and incoherent for years. And we know that he is too tired and sleepy to stay awake through his own criminal trial. It's not President Biden who's not sharp. It's, in fact, Donald Trump. Now, let's look at public reporting. I'm only going to talk about public reporting. His criminal trial started on April 15th. And here's a summary of the press reports. On his first day of his trial, Reuters reported that Trump appeared to doze off during jury selection. On April 16th, it was reported that Trump dropped his head inside the courtroom, keeping his eyes closed before jolting his head upright. On April 19th, the New York Times reported Trump's eyes remained, quote, closed for extended periods during the final day of jury selection. On April 22nd, MSNBC reported that Trump's lawyers were fighting to keep him awake. On April 30th, NBC and the New York Times reported that Trump nodded off for significant portions of witness testimony, and as we all know, basically kept his eyes closed for hours and hours on end. On May 9th, Trump's eyes remained closed for many minutes, and Trump later, of course, dozed on and off. And the reports go on and on. May 13th, Trump was, quote, asleep during the afternoon session. On May 14th, a political reporter said Trump slouched in his seat and closed his eyes and his mouth. Now, here we have a photo of Donald Trump, of course, through some of his trial. And I bring this up because it's Donald Trump that's asleep and that's hurting and dividing our country. And this attack on President Biden and his mental acuteness or his ability or his age is completely just a reason and an excuse for the Republicans to continue to attack President Biden when we all know that Donald Trump is the one that's unfit to be president. And that's why the majority is so desperate to be here today, because they want to help him get elected and hurt President Biden. Well, it's not going to work. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize myself first to offer an amendment. The clerk will distribute the amendment to all members. No, we're not done. We're not done. I'm just going to do an amendment, and then we'll have all the debate we want. And I know Mr. Goldman has an amendment he wants to offer. Ms. Luna has an amendment. And
the first part for the amendment.
We can go back to time on the A&S.
yeah, we can go back. Everybody will have an opportunity to talk. We're just going to go ahead and do the amendment in nature substitute. The clerk, does everyone have a copy? Okay, Ms. Boebert, I have to allow people to speak on the A&S if they want right now. So I will recognize you for 5 minutes. Ms.
Thank you,
Boebert.
Mr. Chairman. First, I just want to apologize to the American people. I don't think that this is the best use of our time when we are squabbling. It's one thing to have fun and laugh as members of Congress and try to find humor or some sort of lightheartedness in what we are doing. But when things get as heated as they have, it's unfortunately an embarrassment on our body as a whole. And so I just want to personally apologize to the American people for that. But we are here to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress for ignoring subpoenas and believing that he is above the law. We simply want to hear what was said in the interview that was transcribed. Yes, we have the transcriptions, but the White House has recently edited President Biden's mistakes by labeling them, quote, inaudible in transcripts. The committee members must be able to assess for themselves that the transcripts accurately reflects the true content of the interviews. Now, the American people, fortunate or unfortunate, have heard Joe Biden speak for over 3 years now. Really, if you include the campaign, about 4 years. And we have witnessed in real time a massive cognitive decline. President Trump, when he was in office, he underwent testing for his cognitive dissonance, for his ability to function as president of the United States, as the commander in chief. And unfortunately, I haven't seen Joe Biden even read a teleprompter properly and get through the reading without also adding in what's in the brackets when he needs to take a pause. And there are many things that we could go on here, but I want to hear the inflections in Joe Biden's responses when he is answering these questions. Now, on February 27th, 2024, the Oversight Committee issued a subpoena for relevant information regarding the special counsel's investigation, including the transcript and any recordings of the special counsel's interviews with President Biden in October of 2023. Now, to date, the Department of Justice has refused to provide the committee the audio recordings. It's a very simple request. It can be provided at any time, but maybe, just maybe, this administration that has tried to cover up so much and tried to physically lift up Joe Biden and keep him upright is hiding even more. So we just want to hear how that interview actually went. I am in favor of moving forward to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress. I think there are many other things that we need to have him in for and move forward on in holding him accountable. I mean, he's gone after so many American citizens, moms and dads who attend school board meetings, those of the Catholic faith. The DOJ has been completely weaponized, and it's very sad for our country. But this hearing will continue. We have many amendments. I'm sure there will be much dialogue. Hopefully, there is some decorum on both sides of the aisle. And if in my remaining 1 minute, I could request, every so often, Mr. Garcia, maybe you could just lift up that picture of our President Trump sleeping. As you say, I think he's praying. But if he is sleeping, he certainly looks pretty while he sleeps. Maybe it's an endearing moment of prayer, though. I know when I fall asleep on airplanes, my mouth kind of drops open, and his mouth is kind of tight-lipped. So maybe it's just a somber moment of
he's
thought.
sleeping. It's been reported by multiple press outlets.
I was in the
that he's
courtroom
actually
today,
sleeping.
and I could see why someone would fall asleep, just like George Conway fell asleep today. In the court hearing, it's kind of slow in there. It's not as exciting as the House Oversight Committee, but I just wanted to say that's a lovely picture you have of President Trump, Mr. Garcia. Thank you. And I yield.
Gentlelady yields back. Does any other member wish to speak on the underlying? Mr. Goldman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In preparing for this markup, I wanted to do a little bit of work to understand why the Oversight Committee is trying to hold the Attorney General of the Department of Justice in contempt. The Oversight Committee does not have jurisdiction over the Department of Justice. The Judiciary Committee does, and I understand the Judiciary Committee held a markup of their own today on the same exact contempt motion. And so I thought, oh, well, let's take a look at the impeachment investigation. It must be coming from that. So I looked at the impeachment resolution that was passed on December 13th, 2023, HRes 918, and it refers to a memorandum dated September 27th, 2023, from the 3 chairs, that was entitled Impeachment Inquiry. It's 30 pages long, this memorandum, and there isn't a single mention of classified documents or special counsel Robert Hur or Joe Biden possessing classified documents. And so, Mr. Chairman, I would ask what on earth we are doing here in the Oversight Committee when we have no jurisdiction to be holding the Attorney General in contempt. And I'll happily yield to you if you would like to respond. Doesn't want to respond.
I'll respond.
Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah, we
Gosar.
actually set the precedent in my first term, our second term, in regards to holding Mr. Holder accountable in contempt in this very office or this very committee. And
Yeah, but that was related, Mr. If I may just reclaim my time, that was related to an investigation that this committee was doing. What the special counsel Hur was investigating has nothing to do with anything that this committee is investigating. I understand that the impeachment investigation that you all ran was such a massive flop and a bust that you would like to try to distract from that complete humiliation, but doing so outside of your jurisdiction is probably not the best way to do it. And in reality, not only was this absurdly postponed so some people could go prostrate themselves in front of their dear leader today in New York, and we are now at 10 o'clock at night, but we have absolutely no reason to be here. We have no jurisdiction over this matter. It was properly in front of the Judiciary Committee. The Judiciary Committee will do what they want to do over there in the Department of Justice, but it is truly a reflection, an unfortunate reflection, of how desperate the chairman is to distract from what was a monumental bust of an impeachment
Would
investigation.
the gentleman yield for a
And
question?
so, not quite yet, Mr. Briggs. I'll get to you.
Thanks.
And so I would urge the chairman to explain to all of us what, other than pure distraction from the impeachment investigation that seems to be over now, as to why we are here at 10 o'clock at night marking up something over which we have no jurisdiction. Mr. Biggs, happy to yield to you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And Mike, I guess my question is on your jurisdiction position.
You know, the point of deciding that we need to release this audio is really simple from my analysis. This is an opportunity for your party to take an opportunity to try to mock the current president. I know a lot of people refer to the former president as president, but we have one president at a time, and that is Joe Biden. And seemingly, this type of attitude and position has come straight from the top. This idea of lacking all decorum, decency, has left the building when the stench of Donald Trump showed up. And so we've seen constantly from him how he mocks people. We've seen in this committee how different members want to mock other members. And that's all this is about. But what is so frustrating to me, and what should be frustrating to the American people, and the reason that really all y'all should lose y'all's jobs, but why we are going to take the majority is simple. It's because we showed up ready to work earlier today, like we always do. And now it is currently 10 p.m. and we are still here because we are committed to doing the right thing. And my question is really simple. It's a matter of, if this was such a big deal, if it was a matter of an emergency, if this was so important as it relates to whether or not the president of the United States has done something so wrong, then why is it that we couldn't have our hearing at 11 o'clock this morning instead of members being in a criminal courthouse with a twice impeached, over 88 count indicted sexual abuser, instead of being here to do the work of the American people? If this was serious, this is the reason that people don't believe that we are doing serious
Mr. Chairman,
work
point of order.
here.
I'd ask
State your point.
my point of order is this. She just engaged in personalities about a former president, which
You
you
can't engage
just
in personalities
reviewed.
with a
No,
former
You've
president.
just
That is not the
reviewed the rules and you know that it's true. If you were on the floor, you would be admonished. You know that.
Not the rules. That's not the rules.
Right. I- That what?
Mr. Chairman, I'll further say,
Let the Justice Department operate in an independent fashion. The key question for this committee, the key question for the Judiciary Committee earlier today was the decision not to prosecute President Biden consistent with that commitment that President Biden and Attorney General Garland gave the country? It's a key question for the Congress when we're doing our oversight. Trump was charged, Biden wasn't. We know that's the case. Was their commitment to impartiality and independence, was that what was actually going on? Particularly when you look at what Robert Hur found. Page 1 of his report. Our investigation uncovered evidence that President Biden willfully retained, willfully disclosed classified materials after his vice presidency when he was a private citizen. So he met the elements of the crime. He kept information he wasn't allowed to keep. He shared information he wasn't allowed to share. Now, why would he do that? Well, guess what? Robert Hur told us that too. Page 231 of the report. He says it right here. Mr. Biden had strong motivations to ignore the proper procedures for safeguarding classified material. He had decided months before to write a book. So he had motive. The motive was the book he wrote, for which he got paid, by the way, $8 million in advance. So he had an $8 million motive. He met the elements of the crime, but he's not being charged. And one of the things we have to evaluate as a Congress, the legislative branches, are they administering justice in a fair and equal fashion? It's a fair question. And the best way to determine that is to get all the evidence and the best evidence. The best evidence, the purest evidence, would be the audio tape. The transcript's great. I would argue he's already waived privilege when he gave us the transcript. But we want the audio tape because that's the best evidence. That's the best evidence we can have as the body who's supposed to do oversight. It's part of our constitutional duty. In order to do that, we should get the best evidence. That is the simple question. We can get all the other fights we get into in Congress. God bless us. That's how it goes. But to me, that's the fundamental question. The elements of the crime were met, both of them. He knowingly, and by the way, he knew the rules. He'd only been in government 50 years, chaired the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, vice president of the United States, getting a daily briefing, intelligence briefing all the time. He knew the rules, didn't follow them, shared them with the ghostwriter, did it for $8 million, but wasn't charged. Why? Why? Because Mr. Hur said he's a forgetful, elderly gentleman. That's what he told us. So we want to evaluate it all. And the best way to do that is to get all the evidence. That's all this is about. Plain and simple. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes Ms. Stansberry from New Mexico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make some points for the record on this amendment and on this proceeding this evening. And I want to start off by first saying to my colleagues across the aisle, welcome back to Washington, D.C. I know it's late, and I know a bunch of you have been traveling. You are on the road today, and I know you must be tired. You all were visiting Donald Trump's trial today to defend his porn star hush money case. And in fact, we have some cute pictures of you here today, and they are some cute pictures, so congratulations, and also some from the last few days. And it looks like you guys had a good time in the courtroom today, but you know what? I don't know, the speaker looks a little bit stressed here. I mean, it's a lot, right, to ask someone who's facing a criminal trial and running for president to ask his political allies to travel over 200 miles on a voting day here in Congress to pop up to New York and snap some cute pictures to defend him because the judge has ordered him to stop threatening the jurors in his own trial. I mean, some might actually view this as direct interference in a criminal court case. It's not exactly law and order, as our friends like to talk about all the time. But I want to just take a moment to let you all know what you missed today while you were up in New York. You missed some votes. Yeah, you weren't here. You didn't show up for votes. You didn't vote on some of the bills that you claimed were your priorities, some of your public safety and border bills. I mean, I can see you had some important business to take care of here today. And as the ranking member noted, the chairman did manage to find time today after they canceled the hearing this morning to have his political fundraising team send out this fundraising email. And I do genuinely hope you made some good money off of it because, you know, we're not actually supposed to use the resources that the taxpayers fund in this committee to fundraise off of. But it does really make you wonder why we're sitting here at 10:30 at night after this is the activities that the GOP were engaged in earlier today when we were supposed to be having this hearing. These fundraising emails went out. Why are we here? Why are we using taxpayer official resources in this committee right now? I mean, could it be political? I mean, it would make sense why you guys rescheduled and skipped votes and went up to New York, and here we are. And if there's any indication that this impeachment scheme is in its flop era, I mean, I don't know what is. This committee has spent 17 months reviewing 3.8 million pages of documents. 3.8 million pages of documents, 80 hours of recorded testimony, and not turned up a single shred of evidence in this impeachment scheme. And yet you still had time to go to Donald Trump's trial where he's about to be convicted. And so, you know, I think it's very clear what all of this is about. The GOP is using this committee and its resources to make countless misleading and false statements to try to spin a political narrative, to fundraise off of it in a blatantly partisan effort to support Donald Trump's reelection. And I mean, if you need any evidence, it's right here behind me. So I thought it was important to really set the record straight on this. This is not a taxpayer-funded campaign effort. And if you needed any evidence that that is what the majority is involved in here, I think it's very clear that that is what this hearing is all about, or we wouldn't be sitting here at 10:30 at night after your little field trip. And with that, I yield back.
Chair now recognizes Mr. Biggs.
Thank you, Mr.